Thank you very much for joining us. You've obviously been on the journey of Diageo and our ESG journey for a very long time. This is not a new thing for us and we've made significant progress. But tell me a bit of the backstory of Diageo and sustainability and the journey we've been on.
I mean, I think it starts from well before I started with the company. So if you go to the archive with Christine McCafferty or you talk to people that understand how the value chains have worked for more than decades, almost centuries now, they've actually been pretty sustainable, right? So things went round the world on sailboats. Johnny Walker originally designed his square bottle to be able to ship more, on the same foot space to be more sustainable and more profitable. And then in my time in the company, I've seen from day one this responsibility to do things in the right way and not be wasteful. And for a business that's higher margin, premium, luxury in big parts of our portfolio, I think it's part of our kind of core being and core essence of the culture that we don't want to be wasteful. And the big transition I've certainly seen in the last 18 months in particular, as we've really got into the momentum and spirit of progress, is I no longer feel like my role in my teams is to go around and ask the company's permission to do stuff to hit our goals and to help ask for support to hit our goals. I feel like we've moved to the phase now where the culture in the organization is kind of really understanding and starting to realize, actually, this is my job. This is what I need to do and I need to lead. And therefore, the pressure's coming back the other way in some ways about, can I move fast enough? So can I find the solutions that the brand teams are demanding or the markets are looking for or the goals are demanding? And can the supply chain now help kind of enable that again? I got a lot of confidence from the types of people that are really passionate about this agenda that either have moved into sustainability roles or they're actually in core roles in brand or in market or in a function, but they care about this deeply and they're trying to make a big difference.
And you touched on it there, but there are some amazing things happening across the organisation at the moment. What are the things that are sticking in your mind where we're having real impact?
So a couple of examples of that would be, I'm always most impressed by things that aren't just decisions in our control, but change the way that the world works a bit. So one of my favourite ones is the aluminium can example. Where we're into the terms of number of cans that we buy every year. It's quite an energy intensive process. There's a lot of mining involved to get the bauxite out the ground to start the can making process. But what was discovered by the teams was that in the UK market, cans get exported out of the UK, so recycled and collected, but they leave the UK. And then when we buy aluminium sheets to print and make cans for Guinness or for our ready to drinks like Captain Morgan or Tanqueray, we pay virgin prices. So there's no advantage to that either in the recycling or in the commercial realities. So the teams led in Diageo, they put together a consortium of people interested and stakeholders across a broad range of areas in the industry and came up with a business case and a proposal and an organisational model that would see us be a founding investor. But essentially it will take those cans, it will recycle them with a new low carbon smelter in the UK, and then we'll pay recycled aluminium prices. And therefore it will reduce our carbon, it will prevent circularity going outside of the country that it needs to, it will create jobs, and fundamentally it will make a massive improvement to our margin so we can keep investing in those brands because it will help the brands to grow. And that's the definition of sustainability, right? Where it lifts up society, creating jobs and having less of an impact on the planet, but we can be more profitable and more successful at the same time. So it's one of the examples I love to talk about, James.
And when we think about, in that example, it's system change and system adaptation that you call about at the start, Ewan. What's our role in that and how do we contribute? How can Diageo contribute to the change that the planet and people need?
Where I think the real breakthroughs will come is you've actually got to get a group of what I call actors or actresses, but lots of different actors and actresses got to come together. And therefore you've got to have governments, financial institutions, business, private small businesses that are willing to take on new business activities. And you've got to find a way to put all that investment together and put all that decision making together to create something different than we have today. Another one would be the eco-totes, where rather than shipping and sending bottles all the way around the world, that it's more difficult to make them circular within a smaller marketplace. The eco totes are 4.5 litre kind of spirits kegs. We're not making as many bottles, which can be quite high on carbon and energy intensity. But you've got to get our competitors to come on the same journey, because all of the bars and outlets don't really want a lot of different types of kegs. But the beer industry has that model today that works, so we can copy it and we can accelerate and move quickly. So I think these examples are coming up all the time, James, and starting to go from kind of initial pilots and interest into companies putting their money where their mouth is to actually really test them at scale. And some of them will work, some of them will nosedive and never be seen again. And I think we just have to be willing to take a level of risk. There's no innovation without a level of risk.
We've got ESG, sustainability, spirit of progress embedded into our performance ambition. But there's still tensions in how we move forward to drive short-term profitability, to drive our long-term agenda. How do you personally balance that and reconcile the right path forward?
This is probably the most interesting question that we could explore, James, I think, because I think it's the reality for a lot of companies that are at our stage or coming up on our stage of delivering their goals. I think the first 2 or 3 years was full of gusto and ambition and driving these roadmaps that we talked about earlier. Now we're hitting the road a little bit where we understand just how hard it really is, just how much time some of these things might take to change. And some of it might cost us some money in terms of be a bit more expensive than we want to do, than what we do today. So the way I talk to my teams about it today is definitely like triple wins is how I talk. Everything I look at on carbon and water, if we find the right solutions, will save us money. So it'll save cost, it'll save carbon or water, and it'll help preserve kind of cash because it makes the supply chain simpler and easier to run. So we don't hold so much inventory or so many kind of ways of tying up cash in the business. And I think I still have big confidence in these triple wins. That doesn't mean I'm not acutely aware if we took something like glass. Whatever you look at, the glass industry itself, the climate risk industry, who kind of study different fields and what will become more or less expensive. Everyone predicts glass will become more expensive, right? So we're going to have to figure out over the next 2 or 3 years, what is the sequencing of our investments and what choices do we make on hydrogen or electricity or offsetting some need for glass by lightweighting the bottles or using circularity. It's a whole recipe of things. And I think it's I believe it's one of our biggest challenges. I know it is. The world will make its adaptations. The energy market will become more competitive to move this way. And therefore, it's the right thing for us to continue to do. But we can't do it irresponsibly. I can't just make an investment and say it'll figure itself out. If I go into the mountains and I'm going on a bit of a crazy new route and run, I have to have an exit path. I cannot have a single route. I need to know that certain points where it gets risky, that I can step back and take a slightly, maybe longer and less risky route for myself. And I think of the company in exactly the same way. If we go in on this and we're making bold decisions, I need to still keep agility so that in the uncertainties of the future, if it's getting too expensive, we can pull back and we can take different choices. But equally, if the world moves fast, which it's predicted to, and carbon taxes come in, or consumers shift to demanding lower carbon, we better be ready, and we fundamentally believe there's a commercial advantage to being ahead there.
With that new knowledge that you're seeing, and you talked about the shift across the organisation, what's your hope of what we can achieve collectively as a result?
I mean, the big word in my mind as you ask that question is an acceleration. And the acceleration will come because we'll collaborate more externally and we'll scale and do bigger things. It's now pervasive across the business, and it's an everyday language in business. But it's front and centered with, you've got to be a successful business. So be commercially astute, make money for the company because you can keep investing in the company. But if you do it in a sustainable way, you'll make more. You'll do better. And I think we all now fundamentally believe that. And it won't always be easy. And there will be difficult decisions, but we're not all here to have an easy job, right? We're going to have to make difficult decisions. So let's get together and make them quickly.
Are there any pieces of advice you'd give to those people that are pioneering and working on this agenda across the business?
Diageo is a far bigger business now than when we started this journey in just 2020. I think our financial results showed that we were about I think it was about 35% bigger as a company. So that means that when we invest or when we take risk, we can do it with bigger numbers. We have to do it responsibly. We have to make very intelligent decision making when we take risk. Just be bold and be open to taking some level of risk, and trust that if other people around you are willing to take the risk with you, then it's worth that risk. If you're the only person in the corner saying it's not a risk and everyone else is kind of having an allergic reaction, widen your scope of people you talk to say, hey, is this really as risky as everyone's telling me? Or do I need to stay as a maverick and be the person that drives this change? But I think risk taking is part of our future and we need to do a little bit more of it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ewan, for joining us.